Welcome into another special edition of the Fast Lane. And once again, we are joined by someone who we talked to earlier in the season. That happens a lot when you have coastal matchups inside the ACC between, with Virginia and Virginia Tech. This time, talking Virginia Pitt, the pseudo coastal championship game. Johnny McGonigal from the Pittsburg Post Gazette is with me once again. Johnny, good to have you back on the pod as always. And let's preview a game which kind of is you can break it down to two parts. It's if Brennan Armstrong plays, if he doesn't play. And starting with the latter, we saw a very, very different, very slowed down, not as explosive Virginia offense when John Wolfolk, the true freshman, was in against Notre Dame. That's a talented defense, but still, this is it's night and day compared to what UVA can bring with the Brennan Armstrong at quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Trey. You look at what Virginia's offense was, what they were last time Brennan Armstrong was on the field in a shootout against BYU. They ended up losing that game. What was it, 66 to 49? I mean, just a barrage of points. But, that's what you get when you have a guy like Brennan Armstrong in an offense that's built and designed to suit his strengths, pushing the ball downfield to Dontavian Wicks, all these good things, right, that we'll talk about. But the bad things are what we saw against Notre Dame last weekend when Brennan Armstrong was sidelined with that rib injury, not able to go. And they had to rely on a freshman. I believe it was the first time starting a true freshman since the late 70s. And it did not go well, throwing 2 interceptions against Notre Dame and losing pretty handily. So it's going to be a matter of, like you said, it's basically 2 different games here we can discuss whether or not, one if Brennan Armstrong plays, one if he doesn't.
Yeah, and Pitt's defense was, they gave up some points against North Carolina, but, their pass rush is kind of really coming to its own, especially, North Carolina's offensive line is not that great, but they were able to get after Sam Howell a lot in that game last week. How opportunistic can the defensive line, or I don't want to say aggressive, but how opportunistic can they be, with a guy like Wolfigan, who's not maybe just not used to the offense, not as mobile as Brennan Armstrong, who's shown the ability, to escape and run. I mean, this guy leads the country in total offense, and he's missed a game. Like, that shows how good he's been this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said aggressive. I mean, that's what Bronco Mendenhall described it earlier this week. And it's a justifiable comp here, the right term to use when talking about this Pitt pass rush. I mean, they sacked Sam Howell 5 times in the first half last Thursday night. And, more than that, I mean, they hit him more than 5 times. He was taking shot after shot. In overtime, he was slow to get up on that last play, the interception that he was harassed and harried by Pitt's blitz. And Pitt has done this throughout the season to quarterbacks. They've knocked out 4 starting quarterbacks out of the game in their 10 games played. Sam Howell might not play this weekend after the injury he suffered against Pitt. Mac Brown called an upper body injury. So this is a front 7 with a front 4 in Haba Baldonado, who has 8 sacks this season. Kalijah Cansey is one of the best interior pass rushers in college football. And then at linebacker, you got a lot of speed, a lot of smarts, older guys, seniors, and Johnny Patrician, Cam Bright, Phil Campbell, Chase Pine, Servassier Dennis, for my money, is one of the best middle linebackers, certainly in the ACC. So it's a front 7 that can get after whoever's back there. And look, even if Brennan Armstrong is back there, you gotta have to worry about his ribs a little bit because, like I said, these guys have gotten after quarterbacks before.
Now let's talk about if he plays before we get to the other side of the ball and Kenny Pickett and this offense. I wrote down if points, asterisk is the best way to describe this game. And if Brennan Armstrong does play, UVA is going to be able to kind of match the points that Pitt's going to be able to put up, because UVA's defense has been very suspect this year, if you look at, especially against explosive offenses. So I think it's very vital for Virginia to have Brennan Armstrong, because they will have to be, I don't want to say points matching, but it's going to be very similar to the BYU game where they're going to have to score with Pitt, who is almost guaranteed to put some points up against this UVA defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Going into the Pitt North Carolina game last week, I predicted like a 52-49 game. I thought that over was going to smash, and it ended up not. Pitt ends up taking up a 17-0 lead, and then really stalling on offense in the second half, not scoring. So they can't do that against Virginia if Brennan Armstrong is back there at quarterback, because like you said, he's able to keep up with. And not just him, but I mentioned Dontavian Wicks earlier, and Billy Kemp is a good guy out of the slot. This is an offense that has weapons that can beat you downfield, that can cause headaches, especially for a defense in Pitt, that leaves their corners on an island, that does so much up front and sends so much pressure, that if you let a guy like Wicks behind you, he's going to burn you for a touchdown. It's not like he's gonna he's not a I'm going to catch a 9-yard pass here, 8-yard. He's not going to nickel and dime you. He's going to beat you down the field and score. So I'm hoping, just as like as a neutral watching this game, obviously, I hope Brennan Armstrong plays, because I think it'd be fun to watch two of the most productive quarterbacks, not only in the ACC, but in the country, go up against each other. But if he doesn't go, I mean, it could be a rough day for Virginia.
Yeah, you kind of wish they would give out all the ACC awards after the ACC championship game, because you could call this a semifinal for the first team quarterback in the ACC, and the winner faces Sam Hartman in the ACC championship game, presuming that Wake Forest gets there. Like I mentioned, so obviously Pitt controls their own destiny. If they win this game, they clinch the Coastal. Virginia has to win out against a Virginia Tech team, which, trust me, they should beat if Brennan Armstrong's in, given the noise around that program right now, who let go of their coach this week. So this is a de facto Coastal championship game, and Pitt did not look great in that second half when they really could have kind of stamped their I don't want to say they still would have had to win this game to win the Coastal, but build that momentum into that game. Granted, the seas parted in the overtime, and the rain came in, and it kind of helped them, but it definitely was starting to develop into a Pitt gonna Pitt moment in that second half against North Carolina.
Yeah, it did. And you know what, though? Credit to that defense for holding on and holding up their end of the bargain. And of course, it's easy to say when you don't score in the second half. But Kenny Pickett, after the game, actually said that he thought that Pitt needed a win like that, a win that came down to the wire in overtime to really test them. Like I said, I'm sure he would have rather won by 30, which is the way it was looking early. Like I mentioned earlier, that 17-0 early lead, 23-7 at halftime. They were in control. But yeah, look, they talk about in control. They control their own destiny. Pitt wins against Virginia. They are going to the ACC championship game. They'll be the second. They'll have their second Coastal crown. The last 3 times, there were divisions, because obviously last year there were no divisions in the ACC. They won in 2018 and made it there, and really had no chance against Clemson. This is a completely different team and offense, and different Kenny Pickett than the kid that threw for 8 yards in that game, and 3 years ago. So this is it's going to be a high octane matchup as long as Brennan Armstrong plays. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely a very exciting one. And how good can Pitt's offense be? Looking at the games against North Carolina, which put up a lot of points against Virginia defense, looking at the game against Wake Forest, Sam Hartman was able to put up big numbers. It's kind of now like, it's Kenny Pickett's turn to put up big numbers against this. I mean, this team gave up 66 points to BYU. Like this is definitely a defense that is not great. It's given up 460 yards this season. So what is kind of you expect from this Pitt offense? Is it just, execution, and they should be able to kind of have their way with this defense?
Yeah, I do. I really do. Look, this is Kenny Pickett's last game at Heinz Field. This is his senior day, because next week Pitt goes on the road to Syracuse. And so this is his last impression that he'll leave on the North Shore in Pittsburgh, unless, of course, he's drafted by the Steelers, or, he's drafted by someone and he comes back and plays the Steelers. But this is his 24th and final start in a Pitt uniform in Pittsburgh, and I'm sure he's going to want to take full advantage of that opportunity, not only to win the Coastal, but to do so in style. I think to go out the way he wants to go out. And really, it's not just him. We talk about how susceptible Virginia's defense is to big plays. Like, there are guys obviously on the receiving end of Kenny Pickett's throws. And got to mention Jordan Addison, who was one of 10 semifinalists for the Blitnikoff Award. given the college football's top wide receiver. I mean, Addison ranks second in the country in catches of 20 yards or more. He's just a big play threat waiting to happen. And even beyond him, Lucas Krull caught the game-winning touchdown in overtime at tight end for Pitt. And then they have another tight end, Gavin Bartholomew, number 86, true freshman, that's coming on recently and making big play after big play. They've got a deep wide receiver room with Jared Wayne making plays over the middle. There's a lot of options at Pickett's disposal, along with Izzy Abanikanda and Rodney Hammond, a couple of solid tailbacks as well if they want to take the sting out of this game late. So it's an offense that, while they didn't look perfect, obviously, in the second half against North Carolina last week, it's one that's potent, and it's the fourth highest scoring offense in the country.
Okay, well, one more question. Coastal chaos could happen because I just looked at the standings. 4 teams could finish at 5-3 in the conference. So 4-way tie. That's if Virginia wins this game, loses to Virginia Tech, Miami wins out, Pitt loses out. I don't think that's going to happen, but of course, I just have to ask: is the Coastal gonna coastal? And how is it? Are we going to have some coastal chaos, or is this finally the year that we get some normalcy in this division?
I think it's going to be normalcy. I think Pitt wins on Saturday against Virginia. If Brennan Armstrong plays, I think it's tight. If he doesn't, I think it's ugly. And I think regardless, though, I do think Pitt comes out on top against the Cavaliers. And I think all the chaos scenarios with the Coastal, all these different, if this happens, I don't think it's going to matter. I think, we're going to be sitting here at 7:30, 8 o'clock on Saturday night and watching Kenny Pickett and the Panthers celebrate on Heinz Field, and they'll be going to the ACC championship game.
Well, Johnny wants to head to Charlotte. I think that's why he's making that prediction. Highly recommend heading to Charlotte. I don't know if you've ever been, but
I have, yeah.
It's fun.
I was there for the ACC Media Days back in July. Had a really good time. So yeah, I certainly would want to go back to Charlotte. Don't get me wrong.
Johnny's going there no matter what. Sounds like a plan. Party. If you're in Charlotte, listening in Charlotte during ACC Championship week, find Johnny. Tell him have a good time.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before I let you go, one more question for you is:
sure.
If Brennan Armstrong plays, do you think the winner of this game is the first team all ACC quarterback, or do you think Sam Hartman kind of gets to have a chance to have a say in this?
I mean, I think he has a say, no doubt. And you look at the college football rankings, and Wake Forest is the only one-loss team in the conference right now, and I think that matters. But I think it would be too easy, and it would make a lot of sense for whoever that wins this game. If it's a shootout, if it comes down to a final possession, I do think whichever quarterback wins this game, if Brennan Armstrong plays, will end up being the first team all ACC quarterback and the conference's offensive player of the year as well.
Well, you heard it here first from Johnny. Thank you so much for joining me once again, man. How can our listeners connect with you once again as we gear up for a maybe the biggest game in the division this season, in the Coastal Division this season?
Yeah, absolutely. You follow me on Twitter at JMcGonigal9. That's McGonigal. And find all of our stories and content on post-gazette.com. Appreciate you having me on, Trey.
Well, Johnny, thank you so much again for joining me. Good news. Pitt does not play Liberty, so I don't have to bother you the rest of this season. So unless they play in a bowl game somehow. But so that's the good news for you. As always, you connect with us at Fastlane Edlane. Connect with me personally at Trey Lyle VT, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to this special edition of the Fastlane.